Hello, everybody. It's George from Ireland. So, welcome back to my channel once more. And the news over the last 24 hours has mostly been, well, in relation to the Ukraine war, about Ukrainian incursions into Russia, the Belgorod region, which is, of course, adjacent to Ukraine. Now, the Ukrainian government and army say, hey, not us. And there's a group which is called the Freedom of Russia Legion claims to have done it. They've released videos showing only 7 of them this time. I think 2 men with their masks off, speaking in Russian, patently native speakers of Russian. Now, that wouldn't prove that they actually are Russians. They could be Ukrainian citizens who are Russophones, because for many Ukrainians, Russian's their mother tongue, which doesn't automatically mean that they're ethnically Russian or that they're sympathetic to the Putin regime or want part or all of Ukraine to be part of Russia. But I mean, it's true that the Russophone community in Ukraine generally does tend towards Russia. But anyway, so they raided across the border. They've attacked an office of the FSB, that's Federalная служба безопасности, which is Russia's internal oppression agency for rooting out dissent, human rights activists, anti-war activists, and so on. So arresting these people, turning them into political prisoners, the wide-scale use of torture, and it runs some prisons and so on. So some villages near the border have been shelled. Obviously, I would never support the targeting of civilian targets. I don't know if there was a military installation, was it just an accident, or was it malice? Were they deliberately trying to blow up civilian buildings? In which case, of course, I would deprecate that. Now, Russia claims that very improbably to have killed 70 assailants. Where are the corpses? They don't stint about showing these things. When they've got them, they show them. So I think I know absence of evidence is not necessarily evidence of absence. But anyway, I suspect that's a big porky pie. The number of attackers was rather fewer than that, and not many of them were killed. I don't know that any of them were killed. Might have been some, but obviously the Russian government's reputation for honesty has often been impugned. In fact, its mendacity is really off the scale, just truly insane, like living in a parallel universe. And someone like Patrushev tend to believe their own twaddle. Patrushev saying he somehow was able to find out the dreams of the late Madeleine Albright. She was the United States Secretary of State under Bill Clinton, and her supposed anti-Russian machinations. She was the wire puller of these marionette dissidents inside Russia. Patrushev, a fellow native of St. Petersburg, one of the closest people to Putin. He's an absolute kook. But anyway, so the Moscow regime said it was a counterterrorism operation underway, and they've declared this special regime in the border area, which allows the security forces to control civilian movements. So you're not allowed out of your house. There could be a curfew. They can forcibly evacuate people, things like that, and just unlimited power to monitor communications, to listen on all phone calls, read all emails, enter any building at any time without a search warrant, stop and search on the street. But these measures didn't last for very long. But so the Freedom of Russia Legion said they're there and Russia will be free. That's their slogan. They're wearing military uniforms. They're trying to liberate Russia. But anyway, it's clearly perturbed the Kremlin, who reacted quite strongly. So Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov has said something about it. Maria Zakharova, that notoriously dishonest and acerbic Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokeswoman, she has also launched a tirade about it. So it's got them rattled. Anyway, so the Russian Defense Ministry said it was a unit of the Ukrainian nationalist formation. And by the way, nationalist is in Putin's demonology. Nationalism is really bad unless it's Russian hyper-nationalism. Now, I'm not against nationalism. There can be offensive nationalism. There can be defensive nationalism. Almost everyone's a bit nationalistic. Nationalism can be a healthy thing. But just because you like your own nationality doesn't mean you need to detest the other or try to attempt the erasure of the other. Obviously, he's trying to wipe it out. He wants to efface Ukrainian nationality. He's attempted the lobotomization and cretinization of the Ukrainians, well, to some extent doing it to his own people, denying them information and feeding them a pack of lies. So there's another anti-Putin outfit, the Russian Volunteer Corps, obviously based in Ukraine. They must be armed, trained, and funded by Ukraine, but they've attacked into Russia, and they claim they are patriotic Russians and they're doing it not because they hate Russia, but because they love Russia and want to free it from Putin's disastrous kleptocratic tyranny. And that they briefly took over a village called Kozinka. They reached Voron, which is a town near the border as well. These are all in Belgorod region. So the governor of Belgorod region, appointed by Putin, he's made some statements about it. And by the way, Putin changed the system from regional governors being elected to being appointed because he couldn't possibly run the risk that even in his very stage-managed elections, an opposition candidate won a significant number of votes. Anyway, it's really humiliating for Russia and obviously perturbing for them because this war was supposedly for Russian security. Well, it's less secure than ever. And when's the last time people attacked across an international border into Russia? I mean, not since 1945, I don't think. So he was to stop NATO expanding. NATO has expanded as a direct consequence of this war. For decades, the Finns had no desire to join NATO. Now they've done it. For 2 centuries, Sweden was neutral, and now they want to join NATO. They may yet get in. So people say this is a Ukrainian shaping operation. It's to put the Russians on the back foot, get them off balance, because, of course, Ukraine's counteroffensive is anticipated. There was a very small counterattack in Bakhmut. That couldn't go very far. They've now lost Bakhmut. They're not even claiming to hold it anymore. But it doesn't matter. I mean, okay, in a sense, a victory to Russia. Their objective was to take the city. They've taken it, but it's worthless. It's a pile of rubble. There's nobody lives there. I mean, how much is it going to cost to rebuild the city? On the other hand, Ukraine won because their objective was to hold the Russians up for as long as possible and inflict many, many casualties, which they have done successfully. But the Russians have built all sorts of defenses, the dragon's teeth to stop the tanks, anti-tank ditches, minefields, machine gun nests with interlocking fields of fire. And this is going to be quite a tough nut to crack, how the Ukraine's going to be able to get across some of these defenses. But by attacking into Belgorod, they're then going to oblige Russia to withdraw some forces, try and guard that region. The public will demand it. Be humiliating. What if the Ukrainians even got to the capital of Belgorod? Not that they're going to hold it, but just to even get there, if that's reported in the news, that will show just how badly the Putin regime is doing. Anyway, so that would divert Russian troops away from defending where they think that the Ukrainians will otherwise attack. So Ukraine's been provided these long-range weapons like Storm Shadow missiles from the United Kingdom, but with the caveat they must not be deployed to destroy anything inside Russia itself, only the illegally occupied bits of Ukraine that Russia is currently holding. And everyone's damping down expectations for this counteroffensive that Ukraine says we're not going to be able to drive the Russians out of Ukraine in one fell swoop or even in multiple stages. It might be a coup de main to get the Sea of Azov because they don't want to set the bar too high and then fall really short and it'd be a damp squib, a complete disappointment, driven back in disorder with very heavy losses. But on the other hand, the Ukrainians have consistently exceeded expectations, and the Russians have persistently underperformed, proving themselves to be more inept than anyone actually expected. They've been given far too much credit up until this point. So thousands of civilians in the Russia's Belgorod region have been evacuated. We claim that the air defenses have brought down some drones overnight. So over 9,000 people are moved. So obviously not a good look for strongman Putin. So at least 2 Russian soldiers have been killed. Numbers have been injured. Of course, every death is lamentable. I mourn them too, and rather nobody was killed. And all the blame lies on the doorstep of the Putin regime. Were it not for them, nobody would be killed at all. Right. Thank you so much for watching this channel. Goodbye.